friend, and I can assure him that this Conservative government will continue to support floating offshore wind in a way that will have the support of the public.
Before we come to Prime Minister's questions, I would like to point out the British Sign Language interpretation of proceedings is available to watch on Parliament Live TV. We now start with questions to the Prime Minister. Ellen Hayes.
Question number one, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Ellen Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The degrading strip search of child Q 2 years ago in a school that should have been a safe place at the hands of police officers who she should have been able to trust has caused anger and distress across the country. On Monday, the policing minister failed to answer 4 separate questions in this chamber, asking when he first knew about child Q and what urgent action he took in response. So I asked the Prime Minister, when did he first hear about the strip search of child Q in her school, and whether he believes that the characteristic dither and delay of his government in responding to this appalling case is remotely acceptable when it comes to the safety of children.
Mr. Speaker, I think that is a completely ridiculous characterisation of the response of the government because of course, the reports of this incident are deeply distressing and deeply concerning. Everybody shares her feelings about that, Mr. Speaker, but the Metropolitan Police have rightly apologised and the IOPC is investigating, and for that reason it would not be right to comment further.
Oh, God, he always does a sort of
investigation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. People across North East Hertfordshire are coming together to provide support and refuge to families fleeing the invasion in Ukraine. The Baldock and District Action Committee are about to welcome 4 families to our community. And doesn't he agree with me that this shows the open-hearted generosity of the British people? And will he continue to do all that he can with the Refugees Minister to make this process as simple and speedy as possible?
Prime Minister.
I thank my honourable friend, and I also thank all those involved in the 2 big schemes that we have now for welcoming people from Ukraine. And the Homes for Ukraine scheme is now open. I think about 40,000 have already applied. 150,000 homes across this country, families across this country have said they want to welcome Ukrainians. That's a fantastic thing. I thank Baldock and District for helping to lead the way.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Right, come on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 800 loyal British workers fired over Zoom, instantly replaced by foreign agency workers shipped in on less than the minimum wage. If the Prime Minister can't stop that, what's the point of his government?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we condemn the callous behaviour of P&O. And I think that it is no way to treat hard-working employees, and I can tell him that we will not sit by, Mr. Speaker, because under Section 194 of the Trades Union and Labour Relations Act of 1992, it looks to me, Mr. Speaker, as though the company concerned has broken the law. And we will be taking action, therefore, and we will be encouraging workers themselves to take action under the 1996
I thought this is what you absolute cockhounds wanted.
Mr. Speaker, passed by Conservative governments. And if the company is found guilty, then they face fines running into millions of pounds, Mr. Speaker. And in addition, we will be taking steps to protect all mariners who are working in UK waters and ensure that they are all paid the living wage, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, when Owen Paterson was on the ropes, the Prime Minister was prepared to rip up the entire rulebook to save his jobs. P&O workers want him to show the same fight in relation to them. The government had advance warning of these mass sackings. A memo was sent to the Transport Secretary and to the Prime Minister's office, but they didn't lift a finger to stop them. Did the Prime Minister not understand the memo? or did he just not bother to read it?
Prime Minister.
I think what the right honourable gentleman needs to rip up, Mr. Speaker, is his pre-scripted questions.
Oh, piss off, you shitbag.
I've just answered.
Pre-scripted questions.
Answered the question, and the point at issue, Mr. Speaker,
Never
is
hated
whether or
someone
not
so
the
much
government
my
was
entire
properly
fucking life as
notified,
this
and,
fucking clown.
and it's not about what happens the previous evening. I knew
sorry,
about
the
it on the
sound's not great.
Thursday.
It's a bit
It became public. But the company concerned has a duty to notify the government 45 days, Mr. Speaker, before they take action of that kind. That is why we're taking the action that we are to protect hard-working people. And what we're also doing, by the way, Mr. Speaker, this month is lifting the living wage for all workers across our country by another £1,000. So it's up £5,000 since 2015.
Here's Starmer.
I think the Prime Minister just said he knew about it on the day.
Yeah.
I take it from that answer the Prime Minister didn't read his WhatsApp briefing.
Yeah.
Let's test his rhetoric.
Mr. Prime Minister, he's running the
Mr.
country on
Speaker,
WhatsApp.
since the Prime Minister
Can't be
came
arsed
to
reading his
office,
papers, lazy
P&O have received over £38 million of government contracts.
£38 million.
And the parent company, DP World, is lined up for £50 million of taxpayers' money under the Freeport scheme.
Holy crap.
The government is apparently reviewing these contracts. But reviews don't save jobs. Can the Prime Minister guarantee that these companies will not get a penny more of taxpayers' money or a single tax break until they reinstate the workforce?
Go on then.
Mr. Speaker, I think what the House has already heard is that
No,
we are
no,
taking
fucking
legal
answer the question.
action against
Answer the question.
yes,
Wait,
we are.
why are you giving them
against
money
the
to
company
pursue
concerned
the defence
under
of the legal action that you're going to bring against them?
Employment
Stop giving
and
them money.
Trades Union and Labour
Stop giving them money. Stop giving them
and
money.
That is the right thing to do
Stop
because
giving
it seems
the
to me, Mr. Speaker,
money,
that they have
you
broken the law.
fucking
But if he's
half-mad
asking-
blancmange.
If he's asking this government to do what Labour usually want us to do and actively pitchfork away investment around the country from overseas, Mr. Speaker, then that is not what we will do. We'll take them to court, we'll defend the rights of British workers. What we will not do, Mr. Speaker, is launch a wholehearted campaign, as they would want, against overseas investment, because that is completely wrong, and wrong for those workers, Mr. Speaker.
Here's Starmer.
Well, DP World must be quaking in their boots. The Prime Minister says how disappointed he is in them whilst handing them £50 million. Prime Minister said about the law, speaking of hollow reviews, as the law stands, it's not illegal to pay seafarers below the national minimum wage, even if they're working out of UK ports and in UK waters. 2 years ago, Prime Minister, his government admitted that that was unjustifiable 2 years ago. As promised 2 years ago, you've guessed it, to review it.
Nothing's
2 years on, despite what he says today, nothing's been done, leaving the gate wide open for P&O. British workers don't need another empty review, they need action. So when will the Prime Minister fix that gap in the law?
Mr. Speaker, with great humility, I must ask the right honourable gentleman to listen to the answer that I gave to the first question. Because it would then help him to scrap his third or fourth question and try another one. We are going to address the defects in the 1998 Living Wage Act. Minimum wage
said
act
2 years
to make
ago.
sure that everybody,
This was a question. Listen, Knobhead. This was a question about the fact that 2 years ago you said that minimum wage not applying to maritime staff was out of order. 2 years ago, and you said you'd do a review. You haven't even fucking mentioned that.
That's what he said 2 years ago. It didn't happen, and P&O took advantage of the gap left wide open by this Prime Minister.
Open fucking
P&O's
goal.
behaviour comes off the back of a string of fire and rehire cases. Profitable companies threatening to fire workers unless they accept a pay cut. The Prime Minister keeps telling us just how opposed he is to fire and rehire. But as we saw on Monday, Mr. Speaker, as we saw on Monday, he doesn't have the backbone to ban it. Whilst he sits on his hands, more and more workers are having their lives thrown upside down by this appalling practice. What good to them is a Prime Minister who's all mouth and no trousers?
Mr. Speaker, the most notable practitioners of fire and rehire are, of course, the Labour Party themselves.
How is this the Labour Party's fault? You've been in charge for the last dozen years, you cunt!
We will be vindicating the rights of British workers,
oh
UK
my God,
employees
you vile
under
little rat man.
UK law. But the
vile
law
little
that the
rat
P&O,
man.
the company themselves are allegedly relying on, was introduced, I can tell him, as a result of EU directives.
What? What the fuck? Look at everyone on the opposition bench. It's just lying. Stop lying to the House, you twat. Stop undermining the basis of British parliamentary sessions by fucking lying all the time.
UK employees
What's
in the
the
way that
point of having a parliament if this gobshite can just fucking lie?
That workers in this country have the best protection of all, which is a job, Mr. Speaker. And under this government, thanks to the steps that we have taken, thanks to the stewardship of the economy by my right honourable friend, which you'll be hearing about in a little bit more, Mr. Speaker, we have people in payroll employment, 600,000 more of them than before the pandemic began.
Fucking lying. You're lying again.
He can complain all he likes, but on Monday he ordered all of his lot to abstain on a vote to ban fire and rehire. And they all did. And then, Mr. Speaker, to add insult to injury, after the vote, his party posted a message saying that where possible, they will look to find P&O workers new jobs.
That's nice.
They don't want new jobs. They want their old jobs back. They don't want a Prime Minister hoisting the white flag. They want him to fight for their livelihoods.
Go on then.
82,000 seafarers in this country. I've spoken to dockers, engineers, deckhands and sailors. They're all worried about what this means for them. This morning, one of them said to me, if P&O can get away with this, other companies will get rid of us too and replace us with cheap labour from abroad. Why does the Prime Minister think that they will take a crumb of comfort from his half-assed bluster and waffle today?
Half-assed! Yes, he swore! You half-assed lazy bastard!
Any more than any other company that treats his employees in that scandalous
bag of
way,
custard,
Mr. Speaker. And this is a historic moment for this country, actually, because it's now 2 years since 2 years to the day that we went into lockdown. And that plunged this country into the biggest, deepest loss of output that we've seen in our lifetimes. And thanks to the Chancellor, who protected the economy, who protected jobs, who protected companies, we've now been able to come out faster and more effectively than any other comparable economy. We have unemployment back down to 3.9%. We have 600,000 more people on the payroll, Mr. Speaker. And the best assurance we can give workers around the country is that the economy is now bigger than it was before the pandemic.
The economy was bigger. No, it's not. You lying sack of shit.
The big
you absolute lying sack of shit.
Got the big calls right during the pandemic. They got the big calls wrong. They would do absolutely nothing to protect
our GDP is nearly 2% down on what it was 2 years ago at this point. They would have done this, they would have done that. No, tell us what you would do. Tell us what you can do. Tell us what you're going to fucking do. I'm going to lie and bluster and call for a review.
Unemployment lower than when they began.
Look, he's still going on about this thing that happened 12 fucking years ago. 12 fucking years ago. Oh, that they would have been really bad.
Thank you, Mr.
You know what?
Speaker.
Labour needs to be more
I strongly support the government's intention to make England smoke-free by 2030. But on the current trajectory, we're going to miss that target. It is vital that we encourage or discourage young people from starting to smoke and encourage people that smoke already to give up. So does my right honourable friend agree with me that it's now time to raise the age of legal sale of tobacco products from 18 to 21 and impose a levy on the profits of the big tobacco companies to raise £700 million that we can put to smoking cessation services on the basis that the polluter must pay?
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. He is absolutely right about smoking. It's the biggest single cause of preventable death in this country. As he'll know, Javed Karnobi is undertaking an independent review of smoking, and I'm sure he will want to take my honourable friend's suggestions into account.
SNP's spokesperson leader of the SNP in Blackburn.
Hey, come on, Ian. Knock him dead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In a matter of seconds at 12:16,
Call him a liar.
aircraft is due to depart Heathrow Airport, a Virgin Atlantic aircraft, to go to Warsaw to pick up 50 young orphans that have left Ukraine, that are coming to spend the next period of their life in Scotland with the sanctuary that we can offer them. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone that has helped to make sure that we can offer a new start to these young people away from the war, and in particular the governments in London and in Edinburgh, and in particular to thank the Immigration Minister, the member for Torbay, and the Refugee Minister in the House of Lords, Lord Harrington. This is a good day for these 50 young people, but let's hope that it's the beginning of something much more significant for many more young people that we can offer sanctuary to. Mr. Speaker, this morning we have official confirmation that inflation is at its highest level in 30 years. Wow. But families don't need official confirmation to know that the cost of food and energy are now at a price they simply can't afford. The very people who have borne the brunt of the health pandemic are now being hammered by the poverty pandemic. Yes. This is not just a cost of living crisis, this is an emergency. Yes. That is why in Scotland the SNP government is doubling the Scottish child payment and raising benefits it controls by 6%, double the rate the Chancellor has proposed for the benefits he has control over. So this is a very simple question for the Prime Minister. If he truly understands that this is an emergency, will he match the Scottish Government's commitment and lift all benefits by 6%?
Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. And we will recognise the inflation, global inflation, is causing a real cost of living crisis, not just here but around the world. In the US, inflation is now running at more than 8%, where at the levels in other European countries. We're doing everything we can to help people. The Chancellor's put another £9.1 billion into reducing the cost of energy for families. I don't know quite what he's shouting out, Mr. Speaker, but we want to do more. And
he's
Scotland,
shouting out the word
I can tell him, is in the lead in helping this country to solve its energy problems, not just with more offshore wind, Mr. Speaker, but by abandoning the phobia of our own hydrocarbons, which I think are going to be vital for transition and avoid us being blackmailed by Putin's Russia. And on his point about the orphans, Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to him for his efforts. I thank him, and it's another example, if I may say, without embarrassing him further, of the burgeoning cooperation between us.
Well, of course, Mr. Speaker, we want to make sure we open our doors in Scotland and welcome refugees, that we have that generosity of spirit, but we'll leave that there for now. Can I say to the Prime Minister that inflation is at 6% and increasing? We need to make sure that those the most vulnerable have that increase in benefits that they need in order to pay for fuel. And the Chancellor needs to ditch the official photographer and listen to Martin Lewis. Family finances are at breaking point. They can't tighten their budgets anymore. These families have no room for manoeuvre. But the truth is that the Chancellor does. Lower borrowing and increased taxes means that he's sitting with £28 billion to spend today. But instead, this Chancellor is making a political choice. The choice to push people further into hardship by hiking taxes, cutting universal credit, and giving companies free rein to slash workers' pay through fire and rehire. So the test for the Prime Minister is this. Will the government use the full £20 billion they are sitting on to scrap the national insurance tax hike and put money into people's pockets? Or will we simply make this Tory poverty pandemic even worse?
Prime Minister.
Right, well, I just advise Mystic Meg over here that he has only 10 minutes to wait before he'll have the answer to that question, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I warmly welcome the improvements to our national Ukraine refugee response. But in the weeks since these improved measures, numbers fleeing Putin's invasion have sadly doubled to 3.5 million and are expected to go even higher. So does the Prime Minister agree our response must still move much, much faster, with a shift to processing applications in the UK, cutting the red tape and bureaucracy, so we can match the scale of Europe's worst humanitarian crisis since the Second World War?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think he's right that we are going to see many more people coming here, and he's right that the instincts of this country are to be as generous as possible, and that's why we've made sure that
that's why you've made a new law to say that if a Ukrainian child comes here without the correct documentation, they'll be put in fucking jail for 4 fucking years. Gobshite! Nazi, Putin-loving, gobshite!
Whilst Ofgem can cap rising gas and electricity bills, other fuels such as heating oil, LPG and solid fuel remain unregulated. Many households in rural Scotland depend on such fuels. There are also areas awash with energy, both on and offshore, yet with huge and rising numbers in fuel poverty. Will the Prime Minister regulate and cap such fuels to alleviate hardship and end the perversity of energy-rich Scotland but fuel-poor Scots?
Well, I thank him very much, and I think he's right that energy-rich Scotland and the hydrocarbons that we have in this country should be used to help the British people, and that we shouldn't be needlessly reliant on oil and gas from Putin's Russia. And I think that's the policy of Alba, and unfortunately it's not yet the policy of the SNP.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm so proud to represent a vibrant Ukrainian community in Huddersfield and Colne Valley. And this Friday at the Ukrainian Club in Huddersfield, they'll be collecting medical supply donations to send to Ukraine and the surrounding nations. Will the Prime Minister join me in thanking all of our community in West Yorkshire who have rallied round their Ukrainian neighbours and friends, and also continue to put the UK at the forefront of donations of not only humanitarian and medical supplies, but also the military aid that is allowing the Ukrainian people to fight so bravely against Putin and his cronies?
Prime Minister. I thank you very much. Specifically Yorkshire. The Ukrainian community in Yorkshire for everything they're doing. Of course, the Ukrainian communities up and down the country, and the people of this country as a whole. I am proud that we are the biggest bilateral donor, I think, other than the United States, in aid to Ukraine. And yes, I'm also proud, as I know the whole House is, of the work that is being done continuously to give the Ukrainians the tools they need to defend themselves.
Graham Stringer.
Mr. Speaker, the Football Association are refusing to move the semi-final between Liverpool and Manchester City from Wembley. There are no trains from the northwest that day, which means 50 or 60,000 people will have to go by road. Bad for the fans, bad for the environment. Unfortunately, this is typical of the insensitivity of the FA, who think that fit and proper people to run our football clubs are Russian kleptocrats and people who are wanted for human rights abuses. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that now is the time to legislate to set up an independent regulator for football with fan involvement?
Prime Minister.
I thank you very much. I'm not going to comment on the travel arrangements for the particular match, though the deputy leader of the Labour Party shouts for me to secure her a train. I'm sure that everybody has heard the FA will have heard the message that he's given. But what I can say, Mr. Speaker, is I do agree with my honourable friend who's just conducted a review on the matter, that we should indeed have an independent regulator for football.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, is a great champion for steel, and we've just had news on the removal of
of the US steel tariffs, will he reaffirm the commitment he made at the dispatch box on the 31st of January that the Chancellor will bring forward a package of measures on our steel energy costs? And if the Chancellor isn't able to make good on that commitment today, will he ensure he does so as soon as he can?
I agree with her passionately, and I think that it is vital that we undo the damage done by the insane policies of the Labour government, the previous Labour government.
Previous Labour government? You still going on about that? It's 12 years ago.
For British industry, including steel.
Everything was different back then.
A British energy
you have made it
strategy
so that our steel is fucked because of Brexit. So don't talk about
British ceramics and the whole of British industry.
All of our exports are fucked because of your fucking Brexit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure the Prime Minister will share my delight that Bradford has been shortlisted to be the UK City of Culture 2025 and will want to offer his support for our bid. It would bring immense benefits and kudos to Britain's youngest city. With over 120 languages spoken across Bradford, its unique cultural heritage, diversity, and let's not forget the amazing food, the birthplace of David Hockney and the Brontes, Bradford has it all. Apart from, Mr. Speaker, government support. One practical way in which he could help is reverse the Transport Secretary's snub to Bradford in the integrated rail plan. So I ask the Prime Minister, will he look again at this and commit to delivering a real Northern powerhouse rail, including a stop in Bradford City?
No, it's still not. It's actually not playing in sync on my laptop. Maybe it's the BBC feed. It's not.
Because already it's committing to cut the journey times, just from memory, from Leeds to Bradford from 20 minutes to 12 minutes, if I remember correctly. And Mr. Speaker, we are continuing to look at ways of making sure that high-speed rail goes direct to Bradford.
It's Labour's fault.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The horrifying events in Ukraine must be central to our focus, and we should do all possible to stand together in support. A war in Europe also has challenging domestic outcomes, with higher energy costs, rising food prices, and effects on supplies and inflation and across the economy in general. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that this is a time where we need to come together as a nation, and anyone seeking to weaponise Putin's deliberate and calculated consequences of the war will only undermine the unity of our nation at a time when Europe is in crisis?
Prime Minister.
£2 million of donations they've got.
And I think that one of the most important things that has confounded Vladimir Putin has not only been the resistance of the Ukrainians, the heroic resistance of the Ukrainians, but the unity of the rest of the world, and I must say, so far, the relative unity, the important unity of this House.
Rebecca Long-Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has been very supportive of nuclear testing veterans, so I'm sure he will be shocked that today the Mirror has uncovered 140 pages of data previously hidden in a footnote of a 1988 government report. There's now concern that the High Court and this House may have been inadvertently misinformed in 2008 when told that only 159 men in UK nuclear weapons tests were exposed to dangerous radiation, when today's data shows exposure numbers were actually 2,314. Will he urgently investigate this and arrange to meet personally in Downing Street with my constituent, her granddad and other nuclear testing veterans to bring an end to this national scandal?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank the honourable member very much for bringing those facts, new facts to the attention of the House, and I know that my office has already been in touch with the group concerned to make sure that we have a proper meeting, and I hope very much that she will be there and we'll be able to discuss all the issues that she's raised.
Is it just number 3 who can't hear me, or I'm not
the government and the Home Secretary in particular, as chair of the APPG on surrogacy, for her work to bring Ukrainian surrogates to safety here. Sadly, in my role as chair of the APPG on anti-Semitism, the news isn't so positive. We heard from Jewish students recently who are suffering record anti-Semitic attacks on university campuses, including...
Sorry. I had to refresh the page there because the fact that it was out of sync was doing my nut in. So here we go.
But instead of helping those students, the NUS has been inviting somebody who is engaged in anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, a rapper, to a conference. Can the Prime Minister do everything in his power to ensure campuses are a safe place for British Jewish students?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think that our universities for far too long have been tolerant of casual or indeed systematic anti-Semitism, and that's why it is very important that we now have, and I hope that everybody understands the need for change and for rapid and irreversible change, but it's also important that we have an anti-Semitism task force devoted to rooting out anti-Semitism in education at all levels.
Mary Kelly-Foy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, the government did nothing to stop P&O ferries sacking 800 seafarers on the spot. On the same day, the Work and Pensions Minister was forced to come to the House to announce over 1,100 DWP job losses and 42 centre closures, risking a further 7,000 jobs, including 1,300 in the North East. Working people are once again being hammered by this government in the middle of a cost of living crisis, causing genuine suffering. Why won't the Prime Minister act to protect local communities from losing real high-quality jobs?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I renew my sympathies with the case of with the P&O workers, and I've explained to the House what we're doing, and we will. But what we're also doing, Mr. Speaker, is helping the workforce up and down the country to get the coaching they need. We've doubled the number of work coaches, Mr. Speaker, and what we're seeing is employment climbing. We're seeing vacancies growing. Mr. Speaker, we are helping this country into work, and that's what Conservatives do.
Steve Bryan.
Yeah, because we're short of people to work.
Go about their lives or even get to work because their driving licences are stuck at the DVLA. Would the Prime Minister make it clear at the dispatch box that the service from the agency falls significantly below what we expect? And would he ask the Transport Secretary to meet with me and any other member of this House? I think we may need a big room to explain how we can help them out of the hole they've put themselves in.
Absolutely. Prime Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
I think I've knocked the sound up, so that level is okay now.
Surprising things about what's been going on at the DVLA. I do think that we need to make sure that they give every possible encouragement and support to expedite the supply of driving licences to the people of this country.
Fucking do something, you lazy bastard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's nice to see the Prime Minister back.
Lazy feckless
twat. A fantasy castle, perhaps Snow White 2. Certainly girls, girls, girls were promised at a party. Less burlesque, more Berlusconi. According to a former minister, it seems the Prime Minister has been entertained at these bunga bunga parties hosted by his close friend, a Russian oligarch. Given his many weaknesses, could leave him open to blackmail. Why does the Prime Minister think that MI6 Why does the Prime Minister... Why does the Prime Minister think that MI6 may not entirely trust him?
What a question! I'm glad I stayed on for this.
Speaker, I'm afraid I missed. Last week I wasn't here to benefit from one of his elaborately confected questions.
It's all a big joke.
I admire his style.
This guy
Mr.
is
Speaker. I'm afraid I simply failed to detect any crouton of substance in the minestrone of nonsense that he just spoken.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Listen to him go.
Mr. Speaker, Wrexham is a town based on brewing, mining and football, a town evolving in aspiration, prosperity and creativity whilst retaining its Welsh identity. Can the Prime Minister congratulate Wrexham on being shortlisted for the City of Culture? And if he was to win the first Welsh town to do so.
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Wrexham's not only the city of shortlisted for the city of culture and with all the distinctions that she mentions, but it is also the city of vaccines.
Oh, he's mentioned the fucking vaccines. There we go. We got vaccines on the card. He's blamed everything on Labour. He's blamed everything on Labour from 12 years ago. He said Labour would have done something else other than what he did. Would have made things worse. And now he's mentioned vaccines.
One of the most colossal cock-ups in recent government management, and taxpayers are paying for it.
Wow,
we now know
really
the Chancellor's failure has cost the country £11.8 billion. Almost exactly the same as the amount national insurance is going to be increased on working people in the coming year. Does the Prime Minister think it is fair to demand working people pay the bill for the Chancellor's failures?
Mr. Speaker, I remember him when he was doing planning at Islington Council, and a complete cock-up he made of that. What I can tell him is that this government has made sure that we got the PPE, we got the supplies that were needed in record time, and that was absolutely vital. And at a time, Mr. Speaker, when they were calling on us to go further and faster. And never forget, under the last Labour government, there was £23 billion lost in fraud every year.
Further and faster.
And he's trying to complain about that. I welcome the important interim report from Dr. Hilary Cass, in which she highlights the need for more research into our young girls, why so many of them are presenting with gender distress. Will my right honourable friend agree to meet with me and other concerned colleagues and to discuss how we can constructively support these young people who are experiencing gender distress?
Gender distress. Prime Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I would be very happy to meet with my honourable friend, and I think that this is one of those issues that the whole House is coming to realise is one that requires extreme sensitivity, tact, love and care. We must recognise that when people want to make a transition in their lives,
it was 12 years ago.
The maximum possible generosity and respect. And we have systems in this country that allow that and have done for a long time. We should be very proud of it.
Imagine if you met someone who just continually went on about a boyfriend or girlfriend they had 12 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like,
the basic facts
you'd think it was a bit mad.
Remain overwhelmingly important, Mr. Speaker.
I'll put my mic up a bit. Everyone's saying I'm a bit faint.
The Prime Minister met the chairman of P&O owners, DP World, to discuss setting up a free port in London. And just last year, the Foreign Secretary met DP World as well. DP World run ports in the UK which employ more than 600 workers.
Oh, thanks, number 3.
So if the Prime Minister wants to remove the latest suspicion of his conflicts of interest, will he tell his Dubai millionaire friends that if they want contracts to run free ports here, they must reinstate P&O workers and guarantee the jobs of DP World workers too?
Excellent. Yes. Go on, do that.
We need to use more moderate and temperate language in this chamber.
Fuck off.
Mr. Speaker, I have overwhelming
Should have done.
interest, and that is to protect and preserve the jobs and livelihood of the British people.
Protect and preserve your fucking job, mate. That's all you're interested in.
That's what we'll do with the P&O workers, but we'll also make sure that we continue to attract overseas investment in the record
overseas investment in overseas people. Overseas investment in workers from the Philippines. Overseas investment.
This year marks the 50th anniversary of the expulsion of Asians from Uganda, the country where I was born. Under Ted Heath's government, people across the country opened up their homes for many of these Asians, who then settled and became part of the fabric of our great nation. That British generosity is again being seen as people open up their homes.
Yeah, but get your visas right, or you can get put in jail for 4 fucking years.
May I urge the Prime Minister to pick up those files from 50 years ago, wipe off the dust, and take on board those positive lessons so we can ensure that the Homes for Ukraine scheme has the maximum success.
Minister.
Softball question.
Mr. Speaker, and I think
yes, we're going to leave it to people to actually sort that shit out, and if they fuck it up, 4 years in jail, or we might send people to the fucking St Helena or the Ascension Islands, or I don't know, South Georgia Island or somewhere in the Antarctic.
Her family was a beneficiary of
we live in a country in which this front row of gobshites, these fucking arseholes here, want to get children who are fleeing war and send them to the equivalent of Siberia. Only even worse, because at least you can walk from Siberia if you're feeling frisky. You can't walk off Ascension Island. You can't walk off St Helena.
Owned by the government of Dubai to be replaced with foreign exploited agency workers on less than £2 an hour. The Prime Minister can pass an instrument now to close the loophole so that the national minimum wage applies on UK international routes. Is he going to stand up for British workers or the oil state dictator Dubai?
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for his question, and I knew he was going to ask it, and he was right to ask it. I anticipated his question earlier on. We're going to make sure that everybody working in the UK exclusive economic zone gets paid the living wage, and Mr. Speaker, we'll do it as fast as we possibly can with their assistance.
We'll do it this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the Prime Minister's commitment to take legal action to hold
El Fico.
and DP World to
Hello, El Fico! This is a woman who married a sex offender, everyone. Married a sex offender. Shame on you. Shame on you. She voted. She abstained last night. She abstained on the vote to stop firing rehire. She fucking abstained on the vote.
For the national transport links
and the microphone doesn't fucking work.
Enterprise zone to cover and include the Port of Dover.
Mr. Speaker, she's right in what she says about P&O and about the 800 workers, and I will make sure that she gets all the meetings she needs to make sure that Dover, we continue with all our fantastic investments.
Fuck off, El
in
Fico.
Dover, whether
Natalie El Fico, the sex offender's wife.
We're just going to give it a minute for people to leave before we start the statement. Anyone who wants to leave, please leave now. Let's clear the benches.
Okay, I'm going to clear off for a second. I'll be back. I'm still here. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. Oh. They've actually cut the sound. That's not me. That's the BBC have cut the sound. Because they are going to Ibiza. No, they're going to do the they're going to do the budget statement, which I'm not going to cover because it's going to be boring as fuck, so I can't be arsed. Just 1 second. Hello, and welcome to PMQs with Graham Hughes. Sorry, that was a bit rushed there. I'm trying to get things organised for Ukraine. Well, not for the whole country, but just I'm going to Poland. Supposed to be going to Poland this week with aid for Ukraine, but obviously there was a bit of a spanner thrown in the works because Kieran's not feeling so good, so I can't go with him. And he had the van, so I don't need just a co-driver now. I also need a van as well. I'm just going to sort that out. Hopefully by Friday, we should be ready to go. Maybe Saturday at the latest. But yeah, I'm in contact with a group on the border who are currently giving medical aid to people coming over from Lviv into Poland. And yeah, they've given me they give me a checklist. So all this morning I've been ringing up people, suppliers and things like that, medical equipment and other stuff as well. Like they need sun cream, they need radiators, they need they need like fold out beds for people to be able to lie on. They've only got one bed in the medical tent, and they've got like 1 million people coming through. And I'm not exaggerating, it's really like a crazy number of people coming through. Okay, so I've got to change the background here because I haven't got my House of Commons background, but I will find it for you. I will find it, and then I'll bring your comments up because I can't see your comments at the moment. I need an extra screen. I need an extra screen, which I will purchase at some point. So if I go to if I go there, let's see. There you go. There's the background. Open. Sorry about this. There you go. Perfect. I'm in the House of Commons all along. Right. Okay. And now I'm going to go to not safe for work PMQs. Oh, wow. So yeah, it was a bit of a rush job this morning getting started in time for PMQs. And to be honest with you, I wasn't even sure that PMQs was going ahead today because of the budget statement, but obviously it did, which is good. And I'm thinking next week I might actually be down in London for PMQs, or at least I'll be on the train on the way to London, which should be good. Let's have a look at some of the messages that have come through. Again, thank you. Big thank you to Yorosh there, and also to Number 3 for the wonderful donations, super chats. Number 3's giving me a £5 to get some lunch. I think I'm going to have some crackers with some cheese on, and maybe some sun-dried tomatoes on cheese. That'll be good for lunch after this. And then I'm going to be running around like a headless chicken, trying to sort things out for this trip to Poland later this week. Spanish supermarket. This is David Juado. He's saying a Spanish supermarket started to be like UK, no food, but not because of Brexit, it's because of fucking Putin, the gasoline price, lorry drivers on strike. Indeed. Well, we're going to get a £5. We're going to get £5% discount on the duty on our fuel in the UK, apparently. So I held off filling up the car today for two reasons. One was I was going to wait till what happens in the budget because it might be a bit cheaper, and two, they didn't have any diesel pumps at the pump station, whatever it's called, the service station. Thing is, I would quite like to be driving an electric car, but I'm using my partner's car. I don't have a car of my own, and neither of us have got the money for a electric car. I didn't even have the money for a car, so yeah, it's difficult. It's not easy being green when you've got no money. It's a lot easier to be environmentally friendly the more money you've got, which is ironic because the billionaires in the world are the ones who are polluting it the most. In fact, the billionaires around the world produce almost half of the one way or another, produce almost half of the CO2 that's being pumped into the atmosphere at the moment. And that's just not their lifestyle. Obviously, that's industries that they own, etc. Okay, so moving on, we've got Nicholas saying, surprised that she isn't asking for the PM to throw militant far-left union members to the wolves. I could see that. Lee Korn saying, Bojo laughing as Sunak talks about families huddled in basements in Ukraine. Disgraceful. Yeah, I mean, the man is a disgrace, but he does it on purpose. He knows what he's doing because his fandom love him being horrible. Love him being absolutely horrible. Should I be covering? Am I missing a trick here? Should I be covering the budget? Thing is, I don't really want to comment in real time on a budget because I don't have the economic knowledge to be able to say that's bullshit or that's not going to work or whatever in real time. I need to defer to experts on that. I'm not an economics graduate. I'm a politics graduate. So there you go. The electricity, this is Daniel Wong, the electricity used to recharge your car isn't green. Well, it is if you're on if you're with someone like Bulb, which is supposed to be 100% renewable power, so that should be offshore wind farms, onshore wind farms, which this Tory government, this gobshite Tory government, have put a moratorium on. Yes, indeed, you can't actually build an onshore wind farm at the moment because this government won't let you do it, which is just insane. And why won't they let you do it? Because apparently it spoils the view. It spoils the view. Do you know what's going to spoil the view a lot more than fucking wind turbines? The hills being on fire and the seas rising by 17 feet. That's going to spoil the view a lot fucking more. Every single beach on the planet, with the possible exception of a few lakes in the fucking Andes, all those beaches around the world, if the water level around the world rises by a couple of feet, we're not talking much, we're talking a couple of feet, okay? So this much, that's it. Every single beach in the world will be gone. Like that. That'd be quite remarkable. You can still go to the Black Sea, you can still go to the Dead Sea because that's technically a lake. So obviously that will that'll still have a beach, I guess. But that's drying up as a result of climate change. And yeah, so I don't know what people are going to do for holidays. You can't even go to a shit British holiday in the future in Scunthorpe or Skegness. Get it right, Graham. Skegness, which is apparently so bracing. And you won't be able to go there because there won't be a fucking beach. Well, you could go there. I mean, you know, it's not like Blackpool Beach is nice. It's not. It's horrible. In fact, Blackpool's horrible. And they voted for a Conservative MP, so they can fuck off. Right, moving on. Emmy says, thank you, Graham. Our guy on the border half an hour ago, 28 now. Right now, we're going to drop to -8 tonight. Sunstroke and cold injuries in the same day. Shit, Emmy, that's insane, isn't it? So 28 degrees during the day and it drops to -8 at night. That's like a desert. Freckle Puny says, it's rather infuriating to hear Bodger Johnson blaming policies of Labour government out of power for 12 years. It's just ridiculous. Like, just imagine it was someone going on about the partner who did them wrong like 12 years ago. And they've been with a new partner for the last 12 years and they're still going on about their ex. You know that type. You must have met them. I mean, some people just do. And you're like, fucking just build a bridge, get over it. It's weird to go on about it this much. Maybe for the first year or so, or the first 2 years, I don't know. But like, seriously, 12 years later, drop it. Drop it and move on and move forward. But this is all that Boris Johnson's got. He can't defend any of his own policies because they're shite. All of his policies are cruel, vindictive, not enough, indecisive, hollow, just like him. His policies are a reflection of him and his twattish front bench. And yet, you know, because he can't defend his policies, because he can't say this is a good idea because X, Y, Z, he has to attack Labour. But the ridiculous thing is, yeah, Labour haven't been in charge for the last 12 fucking years. So what do you expect is going to fucking happen? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's ridiculous. What do I mean by what do you expect is going to happen? I mean, what does he want? What does he want? You know, a round of applause. Well done for not being Labour. He says Labour would do this or Labour did this, but 12 years ago. This is what Labour want to do, and he'll make something up, and no one ever stops him. No one ever says, the speaker never stands up and says, oh, you just lied. Just told a fucking fib. Take that back. Need to correct Hansard. Anyway, one of the things that my dad used to say a lot before he got ill was he doesn't deal in hypotheticals. So when people did this technique, you know, this debating technique of saying, oh, well, this would happen if they were in charge. It's a hypothetical argument. It doesn't matter. You're not defending your own base. You're not saying this is the reason why what we're doing is a good idea. You're literally saying, well, it's a better idea than what they would have done. But you don't know that because it's a hypothetical situation. It's so frustrating. And I share your frustration on that, Freckle Pewdie. He still cons people into thinking the Tories came to power at the same time he did. Yeah. Anyway, Octopus claimed to use renewable energy, says number 3. That's true. Eurovash says, I love the super yacht are getting exposure at the moment. Costs hundreds of millions to buy and about 1/10 of that to run a year for someone to use it 2 weeks a year. Yeah, Eurovash, this was something that annoyed the living shit out of me when I was traveling around the Caribbean because I didn't realize how bad the situation was with these super yachts. There was one that was in, I think it was Antigua, and it had come down from the Great Lakes, and I was speaking to the crew who had been on board, and they were paid handsomely. But I don't think even they were paid as much as the petrol companies that provided the fucking fuel for the fucking thing. Like, seriously, the amount of fuel these motherfucking super yachts use to come down from the Great Lakes to the Caribbean, for instance, was just astronomical. You're talking millions. We're talking millions of dollars to move this little fucking boy toy around the ocean. It's disgraceful. But the thing is, these oligarchs' yachts are quite vulnerable. And if there are any Ukrainians or Ukrainian sympathizers in places where these yachts are, it doesn't take much to not sink a yacht, but just make it a little bit inconvenient for the people who own the yacht to ever use it again. If you know what I mean. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But the fact that we gave all these oligarchs like heads up, oh, we're gonna sanction you, so they could get their fucking yachts out of the place that they were in. It's disgraceful. I think one of Roman Abramovich's yachts left St. Martin in the Caribbean, which is part of the EU. The EU could have grabbed that motherfucker, but instead he sailed it. Well, he's had it sailed all the way through the Mediterranean to Turkey, And it's interesting, if you look at the trajectory of the journey, the path that they took, they were like a few meters from EU territory, and they went around it. So they made sure they were in international waters, and then they just sort of, because it's Greece, obviously very close to Turkey, and made sure they were just in Turkish waters. Turkey have said that they will not they'll not freeze the assets or sanction anyone who is on a yacht, so they won't be taking anyone's yacht, which I think is a big mistake for Turkey, because A, Turkey is a member of NATO, and B, it's loads of fucking money. Erdogan, you've got a fucking inflation rate of 50%, you daft twat. There's $500 million sitting there. Just take it. No one's going to complain if you literally just take that yacht, fucking sell it, and keep the money for the Turkish people. No one's going to complain. No one's going to do you in. And the Russians complain, you're part of fucking NATO. Just take it. Just take the yachts. There's more than one, actually. Maybe a few £1 billion worth or $1 billion worth of yachts. Go for it, man. Okay, until March 2023, no Kremlins, no Gremlins. You can always go with Kieran when he has to do 2 trips. Weather will be warmer too. Yeah, number 9. When we set up this fund for going to Ukraine, the idea was that we would have enough to do the first journey, and we would live stream it, and the live streaming would get loads of viewers, because obviously Kieran's a bit more popular than me, and off the back of that we'll raise more money, be able to do more trips, and also pay for other people to do trips as well, so it wasn't just us doing it. So that's still the plan down the road, but so we have always planned to do more than one trip, so we'll just have to see for now. Let's have a look. Duke Vengeance, Your Honour, I can't go to jail for murdering that person because I haven't killed anyone in the last 12 years. Exactly. Franco Pioni, did anyone hear about the Labour MP bringing up the bunga parties attended by Bodger? Well done, that man. Yes, we heard that, Franco Pioni. He almost got shouted down by the Conservative MPs, and Boris Johnson refused to answer his question, calling it a minestrone of baloney or something. I don't know. He came up with some stupid analogy. Doubling the household support to fund $1 billion to local councils. They are ships, not yachts, says number 3. As one MP shouted, is that it? Indeed. It's all he's planning. Gee, thanks, Rishi. Doubling the household support fund to $1 billion to local councils. That's a bit pathetic. Shared between 66 million people. Always look on the bright side of life. He's basically saying we're skint, we've borrowed too much. Austerity 2.0. It's all coming. It's all to play for. It's all a load of shit. Right. Thank you for joining me for today's PMQs. I'm going to leave you to go and watch the budget if you want to watch that. I will be back hopefully tomorrow for Côte d'Ivoire. And until then, on Hughes the World. And until then, I'll say thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye. Oh, and thanks for the super chats. You're awesome.